Hey everyone, it's Erica Cologne from Nitty Gritty Science, and I'm excited to talk to you today about tagging your science resources with Texas State, the Virginia State, and the Next Generation Science Standards. So I'm familiar with the standards for those three states because I've taught in both Texas and Virginia, being a Navy wife, and along with 4 other states moving around. And then in those 6 states that I taught, I've also taught all grade levels between 6th grade and 12th grade, and multiple science disciplines, including physical science, life science, earth science, biology, chemistry, and marine science. So I had to become familiar with the standards for the individual states. And back then, the next generation science standards were a little different. They've revised since then, and they're looking at more of a 3-dimensional concept, which we're going to talk about in a second. So I want to show you where I go to take my resources, what sites I use to tag for those states and those national standards, especially because, as you may know, the state standards change. So you always want to make sure that you are tagging not only the appropriate standard, but the most recent and up-to-date standard. So when I'm tagging my Texas standards, I'm going to go ahead and look at the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for Science. Now, the website, to me, it goes through and it lists all of their standards. However, I have found that this website where they do the TEACS snapshot by leadforward.com makes the standards streamlined and it's easy to read. Not only do you have the knowledge and skill statements at the bottom of the first page, on the second page, you're also going to have readiness standards and supporting standards as well. So you can find that if your lesson is hitting some of the supporting standards, you can tag those standards. So this is really clean to me, and I love using this when I'm tagging my Texas state standards. When I'm doing Virginia, I'm going to go ahead and use the PDFs that are available for download for not only the standards, but I'm also going to grab the PDFs for the curriculum framework so I can see how it ties through with each grade level. And this is just found on the Virginia Department of Education. And they'll be updated on there for you as well. And so this is important to me because I want to make sure, again, that I'm updating and I'm using the correct standards. Now, when I'm looking at the next generation science standards, they have taken their 3 dimension of science learning, and all dimensions are tied into the standards or the performance expectations. So even though we have a standard, we also have to look at these 3 dimensions. And the easiest way to do that is when you're looking at your resources and comparing them to the standards is to go ahead and grab a PDF of your science topics like this on the nextgenscience.org. Now at the top are going to be the performance expectations or the science standards that you're going to align to your products. This is going to be the number that you're going to use, but in order to appropriately tag it for that standard, this is important, you have to make sure that your resource has a component and you have evidence of that component from the science and engineering practice, from the disciplinary core ideas in the orange, and the cross-cutting concepts in the green. So for example, if I'm going to have my students create a mousetrap race car, then I'm also going to see what standard is that hitting up above, and then look below. Are they carrying out an investigation? Or are they designing solutions? Yes, I'm going to make sure that my lesson has that. So check, I have done that. If I'm looking at the disciplinary core ideas, those bullets are going to really break down the science topics for you. So I know I'm going to hit one of those bullets. And then I'm looking at one of the cross-cutting concepts, and maybe for like a mousetrap race car, I'm definitely going to look at the models, how I can use those systems and put everything together in that mousetrap race car. And I'm going to make sure that that's detailed very well in my lesson plan. So now I know that all 3 of those dimensions are hit. I can go ahead and tag the lesson that I have for the mousetrap race car as a next generation science standard. Now, if you have not used this page, or if you are just getting started tagging on the next generation science standards, really look at the bottom of this page, and I'll just show you, this is on a different standards, but they also allow Common Core like connections down below. So it also helps you tag for the Common Core on your Teachers Pay Teachers resources as well. So if any of those tie in with the resource that you are tagging, that's a great helpful thing to have on there. Now, if your team or your state has just adopted the next generation science standards, or if you're not familiar with the next generation science standards and you want to see if your lesson or your unit will work for the standard you're looking at, On the resource section of the nextgenscience.org website, you have the ability to download these rubrics. And these rubrics are going to, this one is a very formal rubric, and this is meant to be used as science teachers sitting around looking at units together and going through the rubric and seeing, is there evidence in your lessons or in your units that you are hitting these performance expectations. And it's pretty specific. And this is a great way to start breaking down and really look at how those next generation science standards are embedded in the lesson plans. Now, if you are not at this level and you want to do something a little bit quicker, you have on the same resources, you have a link to go to the NGSS lesson screener. And this is a much more quicker review of your lesson to see if you're on the right track. You're going to be able to real quick go and see, it wants you to just mark down evidence. Like, do you have evidence of the science and engineering practice in the lesson you're about to tag? Do you hit a cross-cutting concept? Do you have disciplinary core ideas in there? And so this just helps you do a more quicker evaluation of the lesson that you want to tag for the next generation science standards. So those are free for you to download, and those would be great tools to make sure that you are applying the next generation science standards to your products. So I hope that helps. I hope those resources help. And we want to make sure, because once a customer finds that you are appropriately tagging your resources, they will trust you to come back for more resources, because they know that you are familiar with the standards, that you are correctly applying the standards, and you have really taken a burden off of them to make sure that the resources they are using in their classroom hits the standards that their administration or their district would like them to use in their classroom. So good luck tagging. Check out those resources, and I will see you soon.